behind the scenes at SKOR North and 1500 ESPN have sports opinions, so they want you to hear them. It's the perfect digital sports soapbox to scratch that Minnesota sports itch. This is the SKOR North Taxi Squad.
You know, I think it's safe to say for the Minnesota Timberwolves that they have found their franchise quarterback in Anthony Edwards. I know they don't play football and everything. And now we just have to hope that the Minnesota Vikings will do the same with J.J. McCarthy. Welcome into the SKOR North Taxi Squad, everyone. My name is Jason Stormer, joined along Artis Woods, and the prodigal son returns for a second straight week. It is Manny Hill. Guys, welcome to the new future of the Vikings quarterback position in the form of J.J. McCarthy. And also welcome to the second round of the NBA playoffs, a spot where Timberwolves fans don't usually find themselves. But how are you guys feeling on this May 1st?
I'm feeling pretty good. It's been the last week or so has been a lot of fun. I think if you're a Minnesota sports fan, just with the Wolves sweeping the Suns, the Vikings having a really good, exciting draft. And you know what? The Twins, as of today, as of this recording, have won 10 games in a row. So
I know
everything is great.
Artis, how you feeling?
I'm feeling good as well. I can barely hit. There it is. Okay, cool. I'm feeling great as well. I so many microphone issues. I don't know what's going on, but I'm feeling great as well, man. Dude, the Wolves got a sweep.
They did.
The Wolves got a sweep.
They actually did it.
That was crazy. That's just first time advancing in 20 years. Beyond the first round.
Literally.
I think is this the first time they've swept someone?
Yes.
Ever?
Oh, yeah. Yes, ever.
This is monumental. It's a new day and age for everything Timberwolves, so that's great.
Artis,
and
this was the first time they ever won the first two games of a series. Or no, this is the second time. I'm sorry. This is the second time they've won the first two games of a series.
That's again monumental. This is great, and I think Wolves fans should celebrate this. There are higher expectations now that you've done this.
Yes,
but at least now that monkey is off your back, you know that weight is off your shoulders, and now you can move forward and look forward to the Denver Nuggets, who I think are beatable. I can't wait to get to them. But yeah, and then shout out to the Vikings for what I believe to be a great draft.
Yeah. A whole lot to cover this week, obviously, on the Taxi Squad. We normally do. It's been a very busy time of year, but obviously, like we talked about to start the show, the NFL draft went through. The Minnesota Vikings made all of their picks. We had a wonderful time at the Purple Daily Draft Party. Thank you so much for everybody who came out. I had so much fun. Artis was there too. It was a whole lot of fun. We'll get into that even more as we talk about kind of the picks that were made. We won't do a laundry list and tell you every pick that was made. I don't know if you guys have a big, breakdown of Leatu Latu's tape for the Indianapolis Colts. I don't think we need to go that far or anything, but let's at least talk about the picks that truly impacted the Vikings and even some of the reports that came out based off the fact that the Vikings maybe didn't trade up or trade back and other things as well. We knew how it was going to start, right? Caleb Williams, number 1 to the Bears. No shocker there. Jaden Daniels to the Commanders. I don't think that was really a shock to anybody too. But guys, I think the draft really started with pick number 3 with the Patriots, and they ended up doing what I ultimately thought was probably the right thing for their franchise. They did take that quarterback, Drake Maye, who I know was probably my favorite guy for the Vikings to get. And we even talked about how maybe even the Patriots and the Vikings maybe had a deal behind closed doors ready to go. But ultimately, the Patriots said no. And we did have some reports from Adam Schefter saying that the Vikings and indeed the New York Giants, that was also confirmed that the Giants were also trying to potentially trade up as well into that number 3 pick. Although that could have been maybe a smokescreen, guys, because they ultimately went with Malik Neighbors at number 6. But we also had Doogie hop on with Mackey and Judd just very recently. I think this was either today or yesterday, saying that the plan was that Drake Maye was going to be plan A for the Vikings and that J.J. McCarthy was ultimately plan B. What's your guys' ultimate reaction to that? Do you think the Vikings at first were disappointed they missed out on Drake Maye at that number 3 spot and are kind of bummed that they weren't able to strike a deal with the Patriots?
Yeah, I think honestly they were. But maybe not bummed. I won't use the word bummed because I think it was they wanted Drake. I think that was clear. They wanted to move up to get him, and once they weren't able to get him, they pivoted to JJ, and JJ fell into their laps. So even if they were disappointed at not being able to get Drake, it's kind of like, all right, well, they didn't have to move up to get the second best quarterback, I believe, that they wanted in the draft, which is what they wanted, and then they was able to move up to get Dallas Turner. So I think ultimately, I think, like Manny said last episode, they liked a lot of the quarterbacks. Like they liked a good amount of the quarterbacks there. I think JJ was one of them. That was the talk for the longest time until the rumblings, came from camp that they might move up to 3 and trade with the Patriots and get Drake Maye. Then it was like they might really make the move. But it was really but JJ is really the guy y'all been eyeing. So I think that was the gut instinct anyway. And Drake Maye was kind of like, but if we could, let's do it. They ultimately got their guy, in my opinion. They ultimately got their guy. If Drake Maye was 1A, then JJ was 1B, and I don't think they're mad about that at all.
Yeah, I think ultimately Drake Maye was, their number one target. I think, we even heard the reports that they were having conversations with New England all the way up till pretty much the 11th hour, trying to work, sort of a last ditch effort to pull off a deal. Obviously, it sounded like the Giants were also trying to move up into that number 3 spot to maybe take Drake Maye. But I think Kwesi had the thought that, okay, we're going to try and pull off this deal, but it's becoming increasingly more likely that it's probably not going to happen. So let's just have a backup plan. And I think they felt like there were enough quarterbacks that were going to be available. As we saw, 6 of them got taken in the first 12 picks. I think they felt pretty confident that they were going to get somebody. Now, I will say this. I think that when Michael Penix went off the board at 8 to Atlanta, and we can talk about that briefly too. I do think the Vikings probably got a little bit nervous because I think they liked Michael Penix too. I actually think Michael Penix, if he had been there between him and JJ McCarthy, I kind of wonder if Michael Penix actually would have been the guy if they would have taken. But when he went off the board at 8, I think they still, obviously at that point, you still had JJ McCarthy and you still had Bo Nix on the board. And I think they moved up the 1 spot with the Jets to make sure that, they got JJ, because I think they probably prefer JJ over Bo Nix. So I think they jumped up that 1 spot to make sure that New Orleans or Las Vegas weren't going to sort of leapfrog them into that spot.
Or more importantly, Denver, because Sean Payton was just manipulating the whole draft system the whole night. My goodness.
Yeah, I meant Denver. Yeah, I don't know why I said New Orleans. Okay. I was thinking Sean Payton. But yeah, no, Denver, that's who I meant. Denver at 12. And then we saw, did I not call Bo Nix going to the Broncos, though?
Did I 100%.
You did.
Should have gone to Vegas with that bet, man.
The more, I know I should have, the more, we kind of approached the draft over the last few weeks, something was just telling me, man, like, Bo Nix just seems like a Sean Payton. Like, Sean Payton's going to look at that guy and be like, yeah, that's my guy. I'm going to take him. Now, at that point, he was the 6th quarterback, so by the time the Broncos picked, Bo Nix was pretty much it that was left as far as quarterbacks that could have gone in the first round. So, but I think going back to the Vikings, I think it worked out pretty well for them. And it was good that they didn't have to give up a lot of draft capital just to move up the 1 spot to get JJ McCarthy. And they still were able to maintain control of that 23rd pick, which they used to move up 6 spots to take Dallas Turner at 17. So I thought they got out of it really well. Now, they gave up a lot ultimately to get Dallas Turner. Yeah. Because you think about what they gave up to get to 23 and then what they had to give up to get from 23 to 17. They gave up a lot, but you know what? If both of these guys end up being great players, productive players, who cares? Yeah. Who cares what they gave up? If Dallas Turner ends up being like the next beast edge rusher that gets 15 sacks a season and is just incredible, it's all worth it. If JJ McCarthy is very productive and you win a lot of games and you go to the playoffs every year and you're contending for a Super Bowl, I think it's worth it. So I thought they did really well, and I'm excited to see how this kind of plays out now in 2024.
Yeah, I admit, after the Patriots stood pat, that's when the sweat really started for me a little bit, because I didn't exactly, I thought I was surprised nobody traded in really to the first. Did anybody? No, the Vikings were the first team to trade up, weren't they? in the entire draft?
So.
Yeah, I'm stunned by that.
Yeah.
Based off all the rumors and the speculation that we heard about teams potentially trading up, the potential of maybe the Cardinals moving down, the Chargers moving down. We obviously didn't really know what the Giants were going to do. They were the smokescreen of all smokescreens in this draft. And so I'm stunned that there was as little movement as there ultimately was. But after the Drake Maye pick was made, that's when I really started like getting a little bit nervous because of the Giants pick. Look, I know I mentioned Michael Penix going to the Falcons on last week's Taxi Squad. I said that in jest. I said that as conversation filler more than anything else. I said that more to just get a reaction from the room than anything. And as Phil said after the draft to me, after we were talking a little bit, he said, well, there's always a little bit of truth to most rumors. You know what I mean? Yeah. I just obviously didn't see it coming. But going back to the Purple Daily Draft Party that we had, look, obviously the lid popped off the roof for JJ McCarthy. It popped off the roof for Dallas Turner. But in terms of the most visceral reaction from people throughout the entire evening, it was Michael Penix getting drafted to the Falcons, because immediately the booing of Kirk commenced in that building and the bad mouthing of Kirk and people just laughing their asses off based off the situation. Phil literally walked up to we had a live mic pretty much for kind of people to go up to and give their hot takes. He walked right up to it after he announced the draft pick to everybody and said, the Falcons took all of 1 month that it took the Vikings 6 years to figure out about Kirk Cousins. Now, I don't really know if this whole situation is the Falcons having buyer's remorse, guys. I think this was just the plan the entire time with them, honestly. And Kirk's agent put out a statement saying, we weren't in this conversation. We didn't know this was going to happen. This was not a discussion that we had while we were signing and negotiating his contract. But just, based off that you can cut Kirk after 2 years, I mean, this does kind of make sense for the Falcons to have a quarterback sit for a couple years behind a veteran quarterback. But still, just the optics of it after giving him that massive contract. Jason. It's a terrible pick.
It's a terrible pick, Jason. For the situation
but you're Michael Penix's guy, though.
This is the thing. The thing about Penix, and we brought up his age before, he's 26.
He's 24, actually.
Or I'm sorry, 24. Yeah. I'm thinking
but it'll be 26
exactly by the time he starts.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm getting at. So, I mean, you get a guy who's not going to start probably until he's 26, unless something happens to Kirk Cousins. You just gave Kirk Cousins $100 million plus. That's why it's not a smart. I was under the thought process of wherever Penix goes, he's going to either start or he's going to be one of those guys that, he is behind somebody that's kind of a filler for a little bit, and then he comes in mid-season and takes over. That was my thought process. Not to have somebody that's already 24 sit for 2 more years. That just doesn't make a ton of logical sense to me. And the fact that they did not tell Kirk until the last possible minute.
I love it.
It's just, I'm Vikings fans, and that's of course
it's great drama.
But for them, for the Falcons organization, I just think that's silly. And then I don't even think the owner knew that was what the GM's pick was. You see the owner and the GM going back and forth in the draft room, and the GM is just blanking on their names. But Arthur Blank, I believe, is the name of the owner, if I'm not mistaken. Just going back and forth, and he's trying to list all the reasons why. And Arthur is just sitting there looking at him like, bruh, you serious right now? Like, this is what all of these other holes that could have been filled with our first round pick. If you go and reach, if he falls to the second or third and you take him, that looks different. But your first pick at number, 8?
Yeah. Guys, do you know how
terrible.
many times I saw Dallas Turner mocked to the Falcons at number 8? A lot of mock drafts had him going there. A lot of defensive players were basically being picked to the Falcons. But again, as a Vikings fan, that is literally, I mean, if you haven't been a big Kirk guy, like I haven't been, I've been pretty critical of Kirk. I was pretty critical of him in his 6 years. As someone who just didn't stand for Kirk whatsoever, it was just amazing. It was just so incredible. And also, I mean, it was also super juicy that the agent released something the night of. Like, they didn't even take time to really think about it or anything. Like, that's how shocked the Cousins camp was in all this. And now, I mean, this is what I agree with you, Artis. I mean, I don't think this was the time for Atlanta to do this. Maybe next year. Clearly, they're trying to do what the Packers did with Jordan Love or something. But now, look at the controversies they've created. If Kirk is bad, they're going to be clamoring for Michael Penix.
Exactly.
But
I just don't think it was smart. And I like Penix. I do like Penix. Let's not get it twisted. But when you already have a franchise guy in place, drafting somebody at the age of 24, I just don't think is...
It's what they should have done. They shouldn't have signed Kirk. They should have just done this.
Right.
Because they have a lot of great young pieces on offense. This would have been, but like you mentioned, Arthur Blank, he's getting old. And he's getting a little bit desperate to win as well. So But clearly, I mean, the GM and everybody there in Atlanta was like, all right, well, yeah, sure, we got Kirk here, but we need to bank a little bit more on our future, I suppose. It was still just, regardless, just so shocking.
Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing that I think you guys got to remember. Kirk is coming off an Achilles injury.
Very true.
Yes.
Do we know how healthy Kirk Cousins is going to be?
And so my comeback to that, though, is why would you draft the quarterback with shoulder and knee issues, though?
He's been healthy the last 2 years.
Yeah, but still, if you want peak health,
last 2 years,
okay,
and I think I think ultimately when Raheem Morris says, or when we hear that Raheem Morris liked Michael Penix this whole time, I tend to believe it.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to believe it.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is, we don't. Kirk is going to be 36, and we don't know how his body is going to respond from coming off of a major injury like this. We kind of assume that because Kirk has been largely healthy for his whole career, he never really missed the start except for when he had COVID in 2021, that second to last game against the Packers. Other than that, Kirk has always been healthy. He's always been able to hold up. And I think sometimes we think about that and we think like, well, we just kind of assume that Kirk's going to be healthy, but we don't know how he's going to respond to this kind of injury. And the Falcons don't really know either. And I think the way they're looking at it is, we signed Kirk to this big money. He's going to be our starter so long as he's healthy. But if he doesn't, if he doesn't make it the entire season, you got to have somebody that can step in and play, because it ain't going to be Desmond Ridder. I mean,
not anymore.
True.
No,
very true.
No.
I mean, so and if obviously Raheem Morris is a new coach, so he's going to have maybe a little bit of a longer leash. But Terry Fontenot's been the GM for 3 years now. He's already had to fire one coach. He already failed on drafting a young quarterback. So this signing of Kirk Cousins, if it falls apart prematurely, if you have Michael Penix, who granted he is older, but because he's older, he might be more ready to step in and play right away than maybe a JJ McCarthy or a Drake Maye might be. I think, and they've got some weapons down there that can give a young quarterback, help a young quarterback be successful.
Succeed.
You know what I mean? That's why everybody thought Kirk going there was such a good idea, because of the weapons that they had in place on offense. So I think when it happened, I laughed hysterically because it was funny, and none of us saw it coming. But I actually think I don't hate it. I don't hate it for Atlanta. Wow. Because you just don't really know how Kirk is going to respond to this injury. And you know what? The Falcons, if everything goes well for them, they're not going to pick this high again. Mm-hmm. And so they're not going to have an opportunity to get a court. And we don't know what future quarterback draft classes are going to look like. You know what I mean? And that's why I was so heavy on the Vikings going this route of taking a young quarterback too, because you can't just assume, well, bring Kirk back and draft another guy next year. Well, we don't know what the draft class is going to look like. I mean, Shedeur Sanders, and then maybe another guy.
Right.
So
that's fair.
Yeah. So I think Atlanta took that into consideration as well. Like, hey, we think we're an ascending team. We think we're going to have a really good year in 2024. Going up against a weak division. We're not going to pick this high again. At least we're not planning on picking this high again in the next couple of years. So let's get our young guy now. Let him sit for, and maybe the way this thing plays out, maybe Penix only sits for 1 year.
Yeah.
Maybe he gets in and plays in 2024 because Kirk's body doesn't hold up after the Achilles injury. We just, we don't really know how this is going to play out. I'm fascinated to see how it plays out for Atlanta, though, because it is, you do kind of wonder, like, why did they give Kirk all that money? You know what I mean? If this is what they were going to do. But that's where I kind of think, like, the Kirk signing was an Arthur Blank thing and not necessarily a Terry Fontenot thing. And they signed him because Arthur Blank is 82 and wants to win right now. And so he wants to sign the veteran quarterback and make a splash and give his team a chance to compete right now. And I think Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morris wanted to slow cook this thing a little bit more. And so they did both, essentially.
Right.
We'll see how it plays out.
Right. Yeah, and for the Vikings to ultimately get one of the quarterbacks that I think most of the fans wanted, and to get all of this unexpected Kirk drama just adds an A+ grade to the Vikings fans' experience throughout this draft. Although I thought I saw that Mel Kiper gave us a C+. What the heck, Mel? Come on. I think his justification was that we pretty much leveraged all of our 2025 draft picks into 2024. But here's the thing, Mel. We have a ton of cap space in 2025, so we're not going to need those draft picks as much. So you can take that C+ and put it where the sunshine don't sunshine, or whatever I'm trying to say. Anyway, so the last little tidbit I want to talk about. Yes, J.J. McCarthy's our quarterback. We know we can move on with the rest of our lives, right? Okay, one little bit of reckless speculation I want to touch on, because I mentioned Adam Schefter earlier talking about the Vikings and the Giants. Well, he also had a report talking about the Patriots and the Vikings reaching out to the LA Chargers about Justin Herbert's availability. Now, from the reports that pretty much the Chargers gave both teams a flat no, but this was something that was kind of swirling a little bit. I know some Vikings fans maybe thought that this was maybe wishful thinking, but seeing some legit reporting behind this actually made it a little bit concrete that the Vikings actually tried to go out and get Justin Herbert. Now, if you would have asked me, all right, would you rather have drafted a quarterback this year or traded for Justin Herbert? I'd be in the camp of trading for Justin Herbert, because I am all about proven commodities. I am all about players who have gone out on the football field and have actually proven their worth. Now, granted, that would have cost an arm and a leg for the Minnesota Vikings to talk about the draft capital we don't have in 2025. Well, we would have way less, and we definitely wouldn't have that first round pick also if we would have made that trade. But guys, in retrospect, I know we got our guy, we know, but let's just have this conversation for fun. Would have Justin Herbert been the best option for you potentially for the Vikings in terms of who their quarterback could have been this season? Is that a deal you would have wanted to see done?
It's hard. To pass
Herbert.
on.
Yeah,
Ahead,
Herbert. Oh, sorry, Herbert the player. Yes, I think it would make a lot of sense, but I think the thing that has to be taken into consideration here is the contract.
Mm-hmm.
And and not just in the case of the Vikings, absorbing that money, and how it would eat into their 2025 cap situation, but that. What sort of dead cap would the Chargers be looking at for moving him?
Yeah,
to begin with. So to me, it's kind of like, yeah, I'm sure like the Patriots and the Vikings called and inquired, but like if you're the Chargers, you're Jim Harbaugh. I don't want to do that.
No,
the Chargers are already in kind of in rough shape with their cap anyway. I mean, they're kind of locked into a lot of guys, and so if you trade away Justin Herbert, you're just adding dead money to your cap, and you're just making it more challenging for yourself. And you just traded away one of the best young quarterbacks in the NFL. And now, okay, do you take J.J. McCarthy at 5 or whatever? Or like, what do you do there? So I just don't think that would have. It's not surprising to me that the Chargers said absolutely not, because I don't think fiscally it makes any sense for them to even do it. And isn't that kind of why Jim Harbaugh took that job? Was because he's got a young quarterback in place already. He doesn't have to use a draft pick to take one.
I'm sure why the Vikings were an appealing job to him with Kirk Cousins being here, a stable quarterback room. And for a guy that just got J.J. McCarthy drafted, I'm sure that means a lot to Harbaugh. And also because he's a former quarterback too.
Yeah, I've pretty much said the same thing when it was brought up before about Justin Herbert. The player, great player. I have different opinions on him, like winning games, but that's a conversation for another day. Mm-hmm. As a talent, he's a great talent, and in this offense with Addison and Hawkinson and Justin Jefferson and all of these weapons, I believe in improved defense. Yeah, or at least the same defense from last year. Possibly top 10. Yeah, I mean, you're thinking of the Vikings as Super Bowl contenders, in all honesty. With that type of move, you are. Yeah. Especially in what I believe to be kind of a weak NFC still, with like it being just really top-heavy, but they'd be one of the teams that make it top-heavy. But again, the money. Like, the money is, and one reason why you let Kirk go is because of all the money you had to pay Kirk, right? And so why bring in someone else that you have to give that same amount of money to potentially, if not more, right? He's going to take up a ton of cap. And so And then that may make it hard to maybe re-sign Justin Jefferson. You got a couple other guys you got to re-sign potentially still. So I like the idea, but I don't think it makes a lot of sense money-wise on either side, which is why, it's a nice idea, but I wouldn't have jumped at it.
Yeah, and obviously it's not going to happen, Vikings fans. Anybody wishing that Justin Herbert would be on this football team, it's not going to happen. I'm just curious, going into next year, if some of these rumors start swirling again about him, maybe the Chargers don't have as good of a year, and maybe things don't gel with Harbaugh and Herbert as good as people think they do, and maybe after a year and Harbaugh has some time to reflect, maybe he realizes, you know what, maybe this isn't necessarily my guy. And if that were the case, I mean, I think Justin Herbert would be one of the best quarterbacks potentially to be available, not necessarily on the open market, but for trade in several years. So Chargers it's weird. They have expectations this season now with Harbaugh coming in, but they were also not good last year. So I just don't really know where exactly to place them. Obviously, there's a whole lot to go and everything, but it's just how much of the stench of Brandon Staley is going to linger throughout this upcoming season, and how much is Harbaugh going to spray that can of Febreze and get that kind of stuff out of there. Don't know.
I'm going to dead this subject right now by just giving you guys a little bit of information here. Okay. If the Chargers were to trade Justin Herbert before June 1st, they were on the hook for $63.5 million in dead money.
That's it. End of conversation.
Yeah,
it's over. Yeah, that's over. That's over.
Yeah, forget about it. But still, I mean, obviously, with Schefter reporting that kind of stuff, obviously the Vikings were still making phone calls, and clearly that meant they were putting through, algorithms and equations to potentially find out, hey, how could this cap situation work for the Vikings if Justin Herbert ultimately ended up on this football team? So definitely some interesting conversations I definitely would have wanted been in the war room for, because that would have been fun to hear those phone calls.
A little bit of truth to rumors.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Rumors.
I'm just saying. So yeah, we'll have to keep an eye necessarily on that next season with the Chargers. But again, guys, JJ McCarthy is our guy. And again, I'm just happy that we have this resolution. We know who this is going to be. And ultimately, I think this makes sense for the Vikings. Sure, there may be some things left to be desired with maybe some deep ball accuracy with J.J. McCarthy. But that completion percentage, I think, speaks to Kevin O'Connell's name. Really, I just think he looks at something like that and really appreciates that. Probably means that Kevin O'Connell would have appreciated having a quarterback like Sam Bradford back in the day, to be all honest with you. But now it's just, we hopefully, guys, can enter this new chapter of Vikings football. Hopefully it can take us to a place that we've never been before. We're not trying to put all the pressure in the world on J.J. McCarthy. Because where was Ponder drafted? Was he drafted 11, 12, or 13? I forget off the top of my head. It was about the same as McCarthy, right? Just about?
I want to say, I'd have to bring up the 2011 draft. I want to say he was like 11th or 12th overall.
Something about that.
I definitely couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
Yeah. So I guess Vikings fans, whatever expectations you had, I guess, for Christian Ponder, I guess you could sort of apply that to JJ McCarthy based off where they were drafted. But I think it was 12th. Okay, 12th overall. Yeah. So just a couple spots away. But obviously, I think
one Vikings pick after JJ Watt.
Oh man. That's the Steph Curry, Johnny Flynn moment for the Minnesota Vikings right there, maybe just a little bit.
Well, the opposite. I mean, JJ Watt went 11th.
Excuse me. I thought he went. Okay, I thought you said he went 13th. Okay. Didn't the Timberwolves also draft Shabazz Muhammad right before Giannis Antetokounmpo? Didn't that also happen? Yeah, we don't talk about that as much because of the Johnny Flynn, Steph Curry thing, but that also happened, I believe, in 2013.
That one wasn't as obvious, though. Nobody knew Giannis would be.
Yeah, I mean, if we knew Giannis would be this, then he probably would have been the first.
Well, I don't think anybody thought Curry was necessarily going to be what Steph Curry truly turned out to be.
It was still more realistic than Giannis. Like it was a lot more realistic.
I would have taken Steph back in 2009. I wanted them to take him.
Yeah. I mean, his run with Davidson in March Madness was just so fun to watch. It was just awesome. 2008. A new era of Vikings football has begun. JJ McCarthy is the guy. Let's hope Dallas Turner can also be the guy too and replace a lot of the production that we had from Daniil Hunter and other guys like that. But again, just an exciting new era of Vikings football has begun. We get into mandatory mini camps here coming up. Training camp will be here before you know it. These guys will put the pads on. They'll do the joint practices, preseason games. and then the regular season will begin, and then Vikings fans will start clamoring for JJ McCarthy to start over Sam Darnold probably after the first offensive 3 and out of the season. Let's be real. But guys, let's get back to the focus of the present. Even though everything's going on with Vikings football, it's those Minnesota Timberwolves eclipsing the Phoenix Suns in 4 games. I didn't predict that. You guys, sorry, Manny, go ahead.
I got to run.
You got to run. I know you got to run. You're sticking around a long time. I didn't know how much longer you want to stick around to. You didn't give a cue or anything, but if you got to go, you got to go. Thank you for joining us for as long as you possibly could have today. We appreciate you.
It was fun talking with you guys. I appreciate it, and I'll talk to you both soon. This was fun.
Wolves in quickly. Wolves in or Nuggets in, and then we'll let you go.
Yeah. I'm gonna say Nuggets in 7.
Oh, okay.
I'll say Nuggets in 7. But if the Wolves do beat the Nuggets, they're gonna go to the finals.
I agree. This is the Western Conference Finals, gentlemen. Denver, Minnesota. It is the Western Conference Finals. All right, Mr. Hill, prodigal son. Thank you so much, sir. We'll see you. Thank you later. See you. All right, let's, just removed him perfectly, and that works out just fine. All right, Artis, just the two of us now, talking Wolves basketball. I didn't predict the sweep. You didn't predict the sweep. My mama didn't predict the sweep. Nobody predicted the sweep. But, man, it was so fun to watch. That Game 4 looked a little iffy for the Timberwolves. It was probably their worst game by far. They shot worse than Phoenix, and it just looked sloppy. But they still found a way to win and close out the series. Artis, that last defensive possession with like 2.5 minutes where it was either or Conley got the steal. I mean, normally, look.
Talking about how they rotated off
yes,
of the double team.
Yes. And like the ball movement for Phoenix was incredible. Like it was a flawless execution by Phoenix, but just the execution by the Wolves defense was so much better. And look, in the NBA, we understand that most of the time, the big highlights and the things that people get excited about are the dunks, the offensive plays, the buzzer beaters that Jamal Murray seemed to just constantly hit throughout the playoffs, all this kind of stuff. But honestly, seeing just all the other media members get hyped about it, fans getting hyped up, I saw that clip rotating throughout social media a ton. That is the pinnacle of the Wolves defense this season. We've had some awesome moments like the Anthony Edwards blocks and stuff like that. But in terms of just a singular defensive moment that just really, I think, spoke to just where this team has come defensively. And now we are seeing it translate into the playoffs in a way that I don't think any of us expected. It just leaves me so hopeful, even though I know we have a literal mountain to climb with the Denver Nuggets here starting on Saturday.
Ain't no mountain.
Ain't no mountain high, ain't no valley low.
Let me just say, like you said already, nobody expected a sweep. I don't care what anyone says. I don't care what any analyst says. I don't care what any fan says. Nobody expected that the Wolves, first off, they were the underdog coming into this series in general. So most people didn't think they would win this series. There's a lot of Vikings fans too, but a lot of Timberwolves fans that didn't expect the Wolves to win for multiple different reasons. You're playing a Phoenix Suns team that you struggled to beat in the regular season. They got 3 stars over there, right? You haven't gotten out of the first round, like I said, to start the show in like 20 years. Manny pointed out you haven't won the first 2 games of a series ever, right? Mm-hmm. And so there were a lot of reasons to go against the Wolves. But now, looking at this team, bro, the way this team plays defense, like you said, it's sensational, bro. You can't play ISO ball against this team. They have too many defenders. They know how to jump lanes. They have the agility and the length to defend 1 through 5. Legit.
It's one of the fastest defensive teams I've ever seen. Legit. In terms of footwork, in terms of shuffling, in terms of just getting all over the court and keeping on your man when they're playing that man defense. It's amazing.
And you said it best. I do think one of the plays that highlights the series was that defensive rotation towards the end of that game. How they rotated to the back. I forget who they doubled, but the way they were able to rotate. And Phoenix is moving. They're doing the right thing. They're moving the ball around the perimeter, looking for the open shot. And I think it was Conley or I had to bring the play. One of those two guys got that steal at the end, and it was like, yo, that may have been one of the best defensive possessions I've seen in a long time. I'm not gonna lie. Rudy switching out on guards has been sensational, and it's gonna be big in this series. Mm-hmm. Like the Nuggets. I want to get to the Nuggets.
Yes.
The Suns series was great. I'm happy that they got the sweep.
We moved on.
They showed something that I feared that they might not have. Remember I said I didn't want to see a Game 7 with Phoenix because I didn't know about the killer in them. I didn't know about the killer instinct. We saw killer instinct in Game 4. And I'd be remiss to not bring up Cat What is it? 28, 10, and 3.
No foul trouble too.
He was due
Fantastic.
he was due for a big game.
Yes.
He's got the legs back.
Mm-hmm.
It took a minute. Yep. He's got the legs back. And then Ant 40. I mean, but Ant is just Ant at this point. Dude. You kind of just expect him to just go off. This series against Denver, I have one thing. If you guys haven't watched Four Wolves Takes, obviously check it out. But the biggest take for me is the whole situation on how to guard Jokic and how to guard that 1-5 screen and roll action that they run to perfection. That's the key to the series.
Yeah. And most of the time, and if it doesn't work out, I mean, Jokic literally just stands with the ball way over his head and then just shoots and seems to drain a 3 pretty much every single time. It's the fail-safe pretty much to if their offense, if literally their offense, like if an offensive play blows up for them on a possession, that is the fail-safe. Top of the key 3 to Jokic because his arms are so long. He's got a giant wingspan. Nobody's going to block that shot unless you literally get up on him. But that might also be the key too, Artis. I don't know what the double team situation would be with Jokic. That's obviously, what's the word I'm looking for? You're playing with fire a little bit because the Nuggets seem to really utilize the open man so well whenever that happens. And Jokic is going to find that guy too, no matter what. His vision is just impeccable. And we were talking about this earlier. It's just crazy. Just the look, the makeup of this guy. He goes back to Serbia during the offseason and parties, dresses like Gru during Halloween. And is going to be the greatest NBA center of all time when it's all said and done, because I'm guessing the accolades are going to continue. He's probably going to win another MVP or 2. I'm guessing the Nuggets will continue to go deep in the playoffs as long as he's on that team. It's just wild to think that the guy that's literally got drafted during a Taco Bell commercial has risen to this status. And obviously the Wolves have had to deal with the Nuggets in the Northwest Division this entire time. We've kind of gotten a front row seat to kind of watching this whole thing play out. And admittedly, like, Wolves fans kind of got a little insecure a little bit when Jokic started to rise, because there was a point where kind of him and Cat were kind of on the same level in terms of what people looked at in terms of skill players. But clearly Jokic has, taken a significant step over Karl-Anthony Towns and pretty much a lot of the other centers in the NBA, where I know a lot of Wolves fans got a little apprehensive. They're just like, oh, well, Karl was better. Well, not necessarily anymore. I want to talk about Denver's bench, though, a little bit, Artis. Even though, like, yes, it had very key moments against the Lakers in the first round, it's kind of a, statistically struggling bench. If I'm not mistaken, Christian Braun is shooting under 40%. I believe Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, even though he's a starter, he's a little
banged up too right now.
Yeah, he's a little banged up too. I'm looking at this series right now, and granted, I am just so impressed with how the bench players played for the Timberwolves. Nikhil Alexander-Walker in particular, he had a plus 50-something, plus minus, ultimately in the Suns series, I believe. Ant had a plus 60, and Rudy had a plus 62. Ultimately, those three were kind of the biggest reasons why the Wolves won that series against Phoenix. But still, I'm looking at the bench for the Wolves, and I'm just seeing a deeper bench, even though, we probably didn't get the most out of Naz Reid in this series against the Suns. I think there's another level for Naz's game to be stepped up, but I'm with you. If we are going to kind of lose this series to the Nuggets, it's really going to be mostly because the starters are going to get to us more than anything. It's going to be Jamal Murray, who, by the way, look, Jamal hit a bunch of clutch shots in the playoffs, and he's done this throughout his entire career. His clutch factor is through the roof, 99 rating on 2K, I'm guessing, right? Yet he only shot like 40% from the field against the Lakers and 27% from 3. When I saw those stats, I was genuinely shocked, because frankly, that's going to need to be a little bit better for the Nuggets if they're going to want to beat the Timberwolves. I'm sorry. Look, the clutch factor is awesome, but you can't rely on Jamal Murray hitting a game-winning 3 for pretty much any time you want to actually win a game. And so I'm also looking how close those Laker games were, Artis. The Lakers put up a decent fight, even if ultimately the games it only went 5 games for the most part, but. Now, if I hear something from Denver like similar to what they said about the Timberwolves last year, the Lakers actually gave us the toughest. They were the toughest team we faced in the playoffs, or something like that. Then I don't want to hear anything.
They won't show. They won't show the Lakers that much respect.
No,
they won't.
No,
they won't. But
no.
The bench for Denver. Not to cut you off.
Yeah, no, please.
The bench for Denver. You're right. They're just not as deep.
Yeah.
They miss Jeff Green. They miss Bruce Brown. from both an offensive and defensive standpoint. I mean, Reggie Jackson, he steps up. He has games here and there. He makes shots here and there. Christian Braun is decent.
Yeah.
You know, he's kind of like a spark guy. He'll come off the bench, get a couple dunks here and there.
He's a transition player more than anything.
Yeah,
I get the vibe from him. Like, if you want to do some running on a very tall Wolves team, which actually might benefit you, Christian Braun in transition actually scares me a little bit now that I'm talking myself into it. So.
And you know, Peyton Watson and Justin Holiday are hit and miss, and they barely really see the floor. So those guys, honestly, right now, even though they're getting a lot of rest, that is going to come in handy. KCP and Jamal Murray are banged up. The key, again, I don't think you double team Jokic.
Okay.
I don't think you double him, especially from the strong side of the basketball floor. I just think you give up the 2 before you give up the 3. And under no circumstances am I leaving Michael Porter Jr. open for any shots.
No,
that man is a sniper. That man makes every time it leaves his hands, it's going in, it feels like. He is different. KCP to a lesser degree, but also can shoot the lights out. And even though Jamal Murray isn't playing the best statistically, efficiency-wise, we know he can hit the big shots and make threes. And so you have to, in my opinion, the defensive player of the year on your roster, right? Check him one-on-one. Mm-hmm. That's what I would do. If Jokic scores, he scores. If he doesn't, he doesn't. But I'm not leaving these shooters and giving those guys, because Jokic is going to score whenever he wants. The same thing I said about Ant. He can get a shot off whenever he wants. Just make sure the other guys aren't killing you, because that's how Denver beats you. The other guys get money. And then Jokic, he steps in, he picks his spots. He might go for a 13 in the third and 14 in the fourth. And then before you know it, he's got 26, 14, and 10. And it's like, bruh.
I know. So quiet.
That's the key. And I think they also need to win. They need to continue to win the third quarter as well.
That was second half the third quarter for the Wolves against the Suns was just, it seemed like that was the moment where the light switch turned on for Anthony Edwards in particular. It seemed like for whatever reason, those third quarters are just where he shined the most and was just absolutely fantastic. Yeah, you're probably right about the double teaming with Jokic. I'm curious if they'll put Cat on him at all, because
you'll see him from time to time.
Yeah, you will. Probably not the majority of the time, because we know we got Aaron Gordon to deal with too, and Aaron Gordon is much more light-footed than Jokic. Yeah, and so not that Rudy, obviously he's light on his feet as well for a 31-year-old center, but Carl's probably just a little bit quicker, even with the knee issues. Offensive rebound, or just rebounding in general. I think is absolutely key, because Aaron Gordon loves putback dunks. He loves putback dunks.
And he loves that baseline dunker spot cut as well.
Yes, and he's got a little jumper to him too. So you need to actually anything within the free throw line pretty much, or the baselines, you got to be a little bit sneaky with Aaron Gordon. I honestly, because of just how much Jokic signs, I forget plenty of time that he's on that team, and that the Nuggets actually do have a really solid power forward to complement Jokic. It's kind of similar to what the Wolves have with Cat and with Rudy Gobert, although we also have Naz Reid a little bit too to complement that. Yeah, I'm expecting a better series from Naz. I'm expecting pretty much the same from everybody else. Hopefully Kyle Anderson's feeling all right and that he's going to be able to get some more minutes. Hopefully, we haven't brought this up yet, Artis. Hopefully our head coach, Chris Finch, is going to be able to be on the sideline in some capacity. I believe he did have surgery today. We're recording this on Wednesday, May 1st, to fix that torn patellar tendon.
That was crazy, bro.
How wild was I've never seen that before, man. I'm sure there have been moments where coaches and people on the sidelines have gotten hurt like that. I remember that kind of happened to a line judge for the NFL this season in a Saints game. Yep. The guy that holds the stick literally just got ran into, and then there's a camera of him just holding his leg, and it's just not at the right angle that it should be. Yeah, you never hear about this kind of thing happening. It was just kind of a freak accident. But now, I'm sure some Wolves fans are just kind of wondering, all right, what kind of presence are we potentially losing from this guy not being on the bench? Now, from all indications, he's going to try to make it to Denver. He's going to try to do something. I don't really know if they can get him a wheelchair and have him by the bench or something, but obviously he can't stand up. He can't, shout out orders. Obviously, a lot of these responsibilities are going to fall on Micah Nori, who in his own right, I think is a pretty good coach. If all things go pretty good with the Wolves here over the next couple of years, I think Micah Nori will actually be a head coach here in the NBA. But Artis, is this potentially the X factor of the series, the fact that the Wolves head coach won't be courtside for them?
It's possible.
Yeah.
It's very possible, because the Nuggets, what I've seen from the Nuggets in this previous series and last year, they are a second half team, bro. Mm-hmm. And Mike Malone is brilliant at halftime adjustments. Mm-hmm. They were down at the halftime of every Laker game in this past series. They were down.
Yeah.
Whether it be 10, 13, or
20.
3, they were down. So it did, bro. 15. They were down at every halftime, and they only wasn't able to win one of those games. The Lakers won 1/3 quarter, and they got to win, right? And so Mike Malone is excellent at halftime adjustments. And one thing I will say about Coach Finch that has gotten a lot better this year, a lot better, because it was terrible before. He knows when to use them timeouts, man.
Yes.
He knows when to use the challenges and when to use those timeouts. And he's done an exceptional job of that all year and so far in this playoffs. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be huge. Like the other coach, I'm blanking on this. What was his name again?
Mike Nori, the assistant coach.
Coach Nori has to do an exceptional job of knowing when to use those timeouts and making those adjustments. He has to, because the Denver is, I don't think they're the same team they were last year. We brought up the depth. We brought up the health. All of those things play a part. But one thing that hasn't changed, they are still very well coached, and they are still very confident. And so, again, like you can very well lose the series, and that's something, honestly, I didn't think too deep about until you mentioned it again. But you could very well lose this series because of coaching, in all honesty. I just wonder if they can get like a bug in the assistant coach's ear with Coach Finch somewhere. Hey, let's call it timeout. Hey, this is what we should run. Hey, he'll be at the practices and things of that nature. I assume Coach Finch is going to be involved in some capacity. That I know. It's just a matter of what capacity and how can he help in this time.
Yeah, I'm guessing he'll be able to get through like pregame, halftime, postgame stuff just fine. I'm sure he can sit in the locker room and draw up plays for them and get everything ready. But obviously, the staff is going to have to prepare for him not to actually coach the games. So it's going to have to kind of be a hybrid role from everybody involved. And yeah, the timing of this obviously just is the worst. This team is so weird, Artis. You get the sweep. I know I'm stealing what Dane Morris tweeted thousands of times, but you finally get this sweep. You do something you've never done in franchise history, and then something like this also happens. It's like the whole ownership situation with that big Nuggets game that we had a couple weeks ago. It's just like we can't have a nice thing with this team without something else happening. It's so strange. Yeah, this is gonna be just a weird situation to get through.
Interesting to navigate.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it potentially takes to return from a patellar tendon, but I'm guessing like he's not going to be in walking condition. I'm guessing he's going to have like a big brace, I'm guessing he's just going to be in a wheelchair pretty much the whole time, and so hopefully they can. Denver's going to be accommodating of that. I'm guessing they will be. I think it would be pretty shady if Denver said like, "Oh no, we don't have a spot available for your coach who needs to elevate his leg or something." That would be kind of rude or whatever. But I don't know. It's the playoffs, right? I don't know. I just don't know really what these teams are willing to do to get to win a title and do what it takes or whatever. But obviously. Well wishes to Chris Finch. Hope you recover very quickly. Hopefully you can get back to coaching duties as soon as possible. But this is just going to be so fun, Artis. Like I said, this is the Western Conference Finals. With all due respect to what the Clippers and the Mavericks are doing, they're having a great series right now that's back and forth. With all due respect to what the Thunder just did to the Zion-less Pelicans, this is the Western Conference Finals. I view that in my eyes. I think the rest of the NBA culture and fandom kind of views it as this way. Now the question remains, who ultimately will take on the Boston Celtics in the NBA Finals, because I think that's kind of the prevailing favorite over in the East, and they're totally taking care of the Miami Heat right now.
They just lost Porzingis for a little bit, though. Porzingis to be out for a while.
They did.
So but I still think they probably get to the final.
Point is, Artis, I have now reached a level with my Timberwolves fandom that really I haven't been able to access in so long.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to process all my emotions with it. I don't know how I'm going to be with this Denver series. I know I'm just going to be super duper stressed, but I know I'm also going to have a whole lot of fun. But now let's get to it, my man. Let's actually pick this series. Manny gave us Nuggets in 7. What do you think's going to happen?
I got the Wolves in 6 games, man.
Okay.
I got the Wolves in 6 games. Okay. I think that if they win the third quarters, I think if they stay home on the shooters. That's probably my biggest tip. Stay home on the shooters. Don't give these guys, open space to shoot the basketball because that builds crazy momentum, especially in Denver. Allow Jokic to beat you. If he beats you scoring 40 points, he beats you scoring 40, but that's the best chance you have is him scoring 40 and not getting everybody else involved. That is a real thing. People say, it's really hard to just make him a scorer. You can't just force a guy. That has been the solution to beating these guys. Like, legit. That's a real thing. So if they're able to do that, and I'll say this too, because I haven't said this yet. Rudy Gobert, Nasri, and Karl Anthony Towns are going to have massive roles in this series because of that 1-5 action that Jamal and Jokic like to run, because Jamal comes off of that action and you got one or two options. Either you could double team Jamal off the screen right away, an aggressive double team, or you can switch it, which I think the Wolves will start to do because Rudy Gobert has guarded, the guards really well on the perimeter on switches, right? So they'll probably do that. That's why I say it's going to be big for Rudy to step up and guard Murray in those situations. And with the way Murray just diced up Anthony Davis, I'm nervous about it. I'm not going to lie, but I do think overall as a team, and maybe if you could get that switch and then quickly switch back potentially, that's something they got to figure out. I just know that's going to be that's the hardest action, in my opinion, in basketball to stop, that 1-5 action right now between Jokic and Murray. That's why they won a championship last year. They're going to run it constantly in this matchup because they don't want Jaden and Ant guarding Murray. I know they don't. They don't want Murray, especially with a bad calf, going isolation basketball all series long. So I think they'll find a decent enough solution for that. It's going to kill you from time to time, but I think they find a decent enough solution for that. I think on offense, they will attack Jamal and they will attack Jokic. I think Ant has a big series. I think Cat plays well. He'll have some bad games too, because if Aaron Gordon is guarding him, it's going to be tough.
I expect the foul trouble with Cat to still kind of linger.
It's
been
especially
better,
if he's guarding Jokic. It's going to be a thing still.
Yeah.
But I just think that this team is built to win this series. You can go big, small, intermediate. If there's any team in the league right now that is equipped to beat this team, it's the Timberwolves. Any team in the league. I think it's the Wolves. I think they get it done in 6 games.
Yeah. I'm going to say Wolves in 4, Wolves in 4. I'm just kidding. I mean, but what if though? See, if that happens, I might just have to retire from sports talk radio entirely because I will have nothing to say. I will be literally speechless if that happens. All right, so the factors in this series, we don't have home ice, unfortunately. Man, looking back, Artis, if we would have won that last regular season game against the Suns, we'd have home court in this series.
It hurts because you swept the Suns, so you were fully capable of winning that game.
I know, but the Suns swept you in the regular season. That's
what I'm saying.
I know, which also makes me kind of approach this series not really knowing what to expect the unexpected. You know what I mean? I expected a 7-game series with the Suns. I really thought a Kevin Durant-led team was going to put up a better fight than that. I really did. He played okay, but just ultimately, I was stunned by that. I'm going to say also the same thing with the Nuggets. I think they will also put up a massive fight with the Timberwolves. I think it's guaranteed that they're going to put up a better fight than the Suns did. I didn't get this far not to pick the Wolves, though, right? Sorry, Manny. Wolves in 7.
Yeah.
Wolves in 7.
Got to.
This is too much fun. Even if my mind and my brain is telling me, no, young man. Denver is still just as formidable as they were last year. You can't forget about any of that. I am hungry, Artis, and I've gotten a good decent amount of appetizers up to this point, but I'm still waiting for my main course, okay? I've had the salads, I've had the mozzarella sticks, the breadstick, all that good stuff. I'm still waiting for my fettuccine Alfredo or whatever, great. Or my sirloin steak, whatever your heart's desire. You know what I mean? Now, obviously, that doesn't mean I'm guaranteed those meals, right? I might have to, stop by a Taco Bell's drive-thru on the way home instead of eating that stuff, ultimately, and the Wolves could lose in the second round here. But I just didn't get this far. I didn't sweep the Phoenix Suns just to say, I'm just going to cower and be afraid of Denver. No, I agree with you. We can fight them. We can face them. We played well against them in the regular season. Again, we got to take that with a grain of salt with what just happened in Phoenix. But if we were worried about the matchup that we had against the Phoenix Suns, I don't think we can be as worried about this matchup with the Denver Nuggets. Jokic is terrifying. Jamal Murray is terrifying. But again, these are two division rivals. We have probably more tape on the Nuggets than most other NBA teams do. Probably likewise the Nuggets as well. These teams know each other really well. So I just don't think the potential of a sweep is possible just because they just know each other very well. 7 games, Wolves in 7, and they will be returning to the Western Conference Finals for the first time in 20 years. And God forbid, I don't know what could possibly be done to get this to happen. But if we do go to the conference finals and we can somehow, some way get Kevin Garnett in the Target Center, I know it's wishful thinking, but it's just, we're going to be hyped about that if it does happen. I know we're getting a little out of ourselves right now,
right?
But it just truly won't feel like a Timberwolves playoff run if that man cannot be in attendance. But we got to beat the Nuggets first. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Yes. And honestly, it'd be great if KG could show up to games like 3 and 4. But again, Glenn Taylor in the mix. That's probably not going to happen. All right. Artis, Wolves in 6. I had Wolves in 7. Manny had Nuggets in 7. Whatever. Let's see if he ever gets back on this show again. He will. Manny's the best, and we love him. He's the prodigal son. Oh, man. Look, Artis, we got to wrap things up here on the Taxi Squad. There's other things going on, too. I didn't get to the Twins at all. They're on a 10-game winning streak right now. They have completely flipped the script of their season. Artis, I was telling you, man, I didn't think they really had this in them. I thought maybe they were burying themselves too much of a hole. They've dug themselves out of it, and now they're back over 500. But the AL Central is proving to be a much better division so far this year. Besides the White Sox, everybody else has a plus differential, run differential, I should say. So the Twins competition is turning out to be a little bit better, but at least they are now back in the competition. You know what I mean? Because, you know, man, there's a lot of teams that play like the White Sox, and like your season's done in April. You know what I mean? And then you have 6 months of just nothing to look forward to. And that's not fun. And I thought maybe the Twins were tracking this way. I'm so glad they've gotten things back on the right track. And they've done it all still with kind of injury issues. Carlos Correa's kind of finally come back, but Royce Lewis is still on the IL. And Yohan Duran just came back too. So they're still getting pieces back, and yet they just saved their season. So that is awesome for the Minnesota Twins. And we'll talk about them more as the season goes on. Obviously, the Vikings have been the main priority, and the Timberwolves, as long as they keep winning playoff series, obviously, they are going to be the main priority as well. But as we wrap up the show, Artis, you got any final thoughts for us?
Under no circumstance, under not a single circumstance, one more time.
Just in case nobody heard you.
And just in case, for the people in the back, for the people that are listening, under no circumstance should you leave Michael Porter Jr. open for an open 3. Please.
What?
Please.
I can't hear you.
Please do not leave anybody but him at this point. Even if it's KCP or Murray, whatever. And I don't think you should do that either, but face guard Michael Porter Jr. all series. Please.
Please and thank you.
Please and thank you.
That'd be great.
That's my last words for today.
Awesome. My last words kind of involve the Twins as well. Twins fans, look, this 10-game winning streak is awesome and everything, but I'm so sorry that now we're having more issues with Bally Sports North. I don't know if you heard about this, Artist, but you cannot watch them on Comcast now. And Comcast Xfinity, that's arguably the biggest cable company in all of America, pretty much. And obviously a lot of Twins fans gravitated towards Xfinity and stuff when they found out that Bally Sports wasn't going to be on streaming cable channels like YouTube TV and other ones. Now that's out the window too. I think I can literally go to 863 on Bally Sports North here on the Xfinity channel, and it literally says Bally Sports is no longer available. The owner of Bally Sports is in bankruptcy proceedings, and we have offered them multiple options to continue carrying their networks. They have declined each one, and we no longer have the rights to continue carrying their content. This is literally what you see when you turn to 863 on Comcast these days.
Embarrassing.
This is a joke. This is an absolute disaster, and as much as we should celebrate the Twins winning this 10-game winning streak, and that's all fine and dandy, they don't deserve it whatsoever because of the terrible decisions that they have made to limit the access of games to their fans. It's just ridiculous. It's honestly a little bit cowardly too. They went with the money ultimately with this decision. They made the money choice instead of actually doing what's best for the fans. And frankly, Twins organization, you deserve this to happen to you. I'm sorry, you deserve this to happen to you. The 10-game win streak is great and everything, but you got crap like this that you're dealing with too that doesn't even allow us to celebrate it.
Is there no way to watch now?
Unless you have like Direct TV. I know that Fubo TV also, I think, carries Bally Sports North. I think Dish, I don't know if Dish Network has it anymore, but just to have Comcast pull out here pretty much is just... It's the icing on the cake. I'm so glad the Wolf season just ended. I'm so glad the Wild season just ended. So they're not also dealing with this Mets. But I have just absolutely had it with Bally Sports and the Diamond Sports Group. You have ruined TV viewership for these teams in this market. And I know I'm being harsh right now, but this kind of crap should not be happening in 2024. This is embarrassing that Bally Sports has to put this out there on Comcast channels. It's and rant. I'm sorry. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And if I don't know if anybody gets mad at me for that, I don't care. I'm upset. I know I'm vocalizing what a lot of you are feeling right now. We just want to watch our freaking teams. Is it so much to ask for?
Yeah.
Is it so much to ask for? Well, I guess if your pockets are full, that's all right with you guys. But the rest of us are kind of getting screwed over. That'll do it for Taxi Squad for the week, ladies and gentlemen. My goodness. Oh, man, I pent up all that aggression for the end of the show, I guess. I don't know. It's an exciting time for Minnesota sports, even if there are some other things that we have a little bit of angst towards. Thank you, everybody, so much for watching and listening. I want to shout out everybody for watching our YouTube episode last week. It set a personal record for us here on the Taxi Squad. Thank you so much. We got caught in 4K, around 4,000 views. Thank you. Please keep up the good work. We love you guys very much. For Jason Stormer, that is Artis Woods. Thank you for watching and listening to the Taxi Squad, everybody. We will catch you on the next time. Take care. Bye-bye.